morning after the historic night before, and people in Harare are optimistic their future without Robert Mugabe as president will bring prosperity.
The new leadership should create jobs and employment, and they must not revert back to the same system of leadership that we had. We do not expect the new leadership to be corrupt. That would disappoint people.
After a fortnight of dramatic stock dumping, which wiped more than $6 billion off Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, investment analysts say the decline stabilized on Wednesday. But it'll take a lot more progress to fully revive Zimbabwe's economy. The country will need to reintroduce its own currency, but it may take time for Zimbabweans to trust it. They've been using the US dollar since 2009, when its own currency was worth less than the paper it was printed on. It'll also need to figure out how to build its once thriving agriculture, mining and manufacturing sectors. Despite having a highly educated population, unemployment is at 90%, with most Zimbabweans finding work in the informal sector. The cost of civil servants' wages account for 90% of government spending. And then there's the servicing of its debt. Zimbabwe owes lenders such as the IMF and World Bank about $9 billion. External debt accounts for 45% of GDP. Approaching Western creditors for debt relief is one option, but looking east has been the preferred choice for years. China has already built more than 100 infrastructure projects in Zimbabwe since 2000.
Our friendly policy towards Zimbabwe will not change. We want to continue to follow the principles of equality, mutual benefits, our win-win cooperation, and actively strengthen our exchanges and cooperation and elevate our bilateral relations.
The IMF predicts the Zimbabwean economy will grow 3.7% this year. And as the country prepares for Emerson Mnangagwa to be sworn in as president on Friday, the people are hoping this will lead to a new chapter for Zimbabwe's economy. Adefemi Akinsanya, TRT World.
Let's get more analysis now. From Harare, let's join Derek Matyszak, a Senior Research Consultant at the Institute for Security Studies. Thank you very much, Derek, for joining us once again on Money Talks. Emerson Mnangagwa, likely to be Zimbabwe's next leader. Do you see him making a radical change to Zimbabwe's political policies, or is it going to be business as usual?
I don't see that it can be business as usual. The economy is on the brink of a meltdown, and something has to be done, and something has to be done urgently. You mentioned in your intro the level of foreign debt owed by the government. You need to add to that a huge amount of domestic debt as well, which brings that percentage of debt against GDP up to around about 90%. This is clearly unsustainable. Civil servants' wages are gobbling over 90% of government revenue. And the country is entering into a hyperinflationary phase, which is going to cause extreme difficulties for the new government, and urgent measures are going to be required to address that. And that can only be done really through some sort of assistance from the international community. And this is going to require tough reforms by Emerson Mnangagwa, and it's going to be very difficult for him to implement those, because obviously people are looking for their lives to get better under Emerson Mnangagwa, and a raft of austerity measures which are required are not going to be popular. So it's a very difficult situation that Mr. Mnangagwa will find himself in.
But many Zimbabweans have seen this movie before, though, Derek. I mean, if we rewind back to 1991, the structural adjustment programs that the IMF imposed on Zimbabwe, that didn't end well. But you're right, Zimbabwe cannot dig itself out of this hole without foreign help. So how does Zimbabwe learn from the lessons of the past and not repeat those mistakes?
Well, there are obvious macroeconomic reforms which are required, and they are of a different nature, really, to those imposed by the IMF structural adjustment program. There are obvious things that the Zimbabwean government can do to try and attract foreign direct investment. Since 2009, Zimbabwe's foreign direct investment has slowed to a trickle. It's attracting a fraction of the foreign direct investment that the neighboring countries are attracting. So some of the economically irrational policies implemented by Robert Mugabe, which he clung to doggedly and nobody dared to say no to him, these kind of policies need to be reversed.
Derek, do you see a potentially greater role for China, for example, to play in this new economy after Robert Mugabe? I mean, after all, if China comes in, the chances are they may not impose the same kinds of austerity measures that the IMF might.
Yes, but the Chinese input would be more in the form of investment and joint business partnerships. China has held its investment back, not entirely, but a large number of investments have been held back. And China has not been shy about saying the reason why they are holding back on investment is because of the potential instability in Zimbabwe, the political instability that was caused by Mugabe's grip on power and his refusal to address the succession issue. Now that this issue has been resolved, China might see a more pragmatic policy coming from Emmerson Mnangagwa, who historically has enjoyed good relations with the Chinese. They will see the resolution of the succession issue, right, and they might be willing to invest.
Right. Derek Matyszak, I'm afraid we are out of time, but thank you very much indeed for your time. Derek Matyszak from the Institute for Security Studies.